My dad was in the Army for 21 years. He was career Army. He was a Korean War vet, and then when he was 17 he joined, and then I think when he was 18 or 19 he went to Korea for a year. He survived. He went in as a PV1, private 1 at the bottom, and he came out a master sergeant. Then eventually kids came along. I was born in Germany, in Frankfurt, Germany. And we went back and forth to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri a few times, and I lived in Korea for several years, because he was a member of it's called KMAG, Korean Military Advisory Group. And because he was so high-ranking, the family got to travel with him. So we were very fortunate. We saw the world as young children. And I wish I could have done that for my son, because it was such a gift to see the world beyond, there's more than one way to look at things. And if we don't get that, if we don't understand that, we're going to destroy ourselves because it's happening now. It's happening now in current world politics and so on. But anyway, that was a real gift. And then when my dad retired, we were in Minneapolis for about 7 years. So I spent some of my time in Minneapolis. And then he retired again from civilian world, and then he decided he just wanted to, it was his dream to raise quarter horses with his brothers. He had 2 brothers, and they wanted to do that, and they were all excellent horsemen, and they rode, what is that Harley phrase, ride to die or something like that? Well, this is them on horses. And they all rode, up until they absolutely couldn't ride anymore. So that had a strong influence on my life, because my dad and I shared that passion for horses. And they're medicine. Horses are medicine. All our 4-leggeds and wingeds are all, they're all medicine. Let's see. So then I attended school at UND and earned my degree in media production. It was a communications degree with radio, TV production emphasis. And back then, it was very different then than it is now. Back then, only TV stations or production houses had production equipment. And the production equipment cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you had to pretty much work for them or get a project for them. Today, anybody can produce, really. It may not be the greatest production. They need to still learn how, what you need to do to make a good production. But today, we can use our phones now and produce. But it wasn't like that when I started. So when I was in school, the college students all worked at the local university TV station, and they'd give out, they'd have the anchor, and people would run cameras, and, there'd be people, in the control room and so on. And all the people in front of the camera looked the same, they kind of had the same hair, you had to fit a certain mold. Well, that wasn't me. And I wasn't going to cut my hair so I could be on camera, which at that time you had to fit that mold, and I wouldn't do it. And I'm kind of an independent person, so I liked radio. So I went into radio production and it was all my work has pretty much been in public radio or public television. And so I went into radio, and I really enjoyed it. In fact, I actually started my career in radio here in our community with KEYA. I was I enjoyed our speech class and speech. We would do speech contests and go out and compete against the schools in the state, and we had a great time doing that. And then I took a radio production class in high school. I loved it, so I started doing a little bit of production then. And so what I would do is I worked summers at our tribal radio station, and then I went to college and worked at the college radio station. while I was there, and then come home and work at the tribal radio station in the summer. And then a friend of mine, well, she's now a good friend of mine, I call her my sister, she approached me when I had just graduated. And I was floundering a little bit. You know, I was, didn't really know which way to go in production, because you can't just produce. You have to work somewhere. Where did I fit in? You know, I didn't know where I would fit into that. And she was working on a documentary called Warriors, and it was about Native American Vietnam vets. It was a 30-minute piece she did for Prairie Public Television. And she asked if I would help. And so I did. And that opened my eyes to the world of independent television production. And that was like a whole new world. But still then, she still had to use station equipment. We still didn't have access to, you know, you still had to write grants. And you know, it's not just producing, there's so much to it. And even today, it's that way. But it was worse then, because, you know, you really had to deal with equipment issues, and you had to find a shooter. You had to find somebody, you know, who knew how to use those great big $100,000 cameras, you know, and the station's not just going to let anybody take that equipment and produce with it. So anyway, so that was a big change in my life. That was a big, what would Dr. Phil call that? You know, one of those moments in your life that, you know, changed your life, and that was learning about independent television production.